How can you implement deportations, and do you think the public will have the appetite, the stomach for watching deportations on their television screen?
Well, that question is so great and so tough, because the radical left is going to start saying, oh, look, so you'll get rid of 10 really bad ones, and one, beautiful mother who they think is guilty of something, and maybe she is, maybe, and it'll become a story, or a family that's a good family and came in wrong, and they're going to show it. Then it's going to always be tough. It's not going to be easy, and we have to use a lot of good judgment. But the way you get rid of them is the local police. The local police know these people by their first name, their middle name, and their last name. The local police are great. They're just not allowed to do their job. The single biggest threat, not global warming. When they say that the seas will rise over the next 400 years, 1/8 of an inch, which means basically you have a little more beachfront property, okay? Think of it. The seas are going to rise. Who knows? You mentioned the kids. So we're going to cut the Department of Education, let it be run locally.
Okay, so a lot of Donald Trump's interview had very little to do with what he's going to do if he becomes president again, but you had a little sampling there. Some potential PR issues for a second Trump presidency, getting into, like a little thing like deporting 10 to 20 million people. And his solution to that problem is ignoring when they deport the good ones. He talked about deporting really bad ones, which just when you're talking about migrants just has such only the best connotations when he talks about human beings like that.
Hey, I'm glad you're here. Listen, in order for the Damage Report to keep on going, we need viewers like you to become a member on YouTube. Can you click the join button on YouTube today? Thank you.
But he does acknowledge that not all of them are human animals. There are some beautiful moms or whatever. And isn't it going to be bad for him in terms of the image when he deports those people? Well, yes. And by the way, I love that Fox is asking that question. Notice the fundamental plan, not a problem, doesn't bother them. Sending cops, little local police throughout all of America to hunt down 10 or more million people, that isn't a problem. It's that people might think it looks bad every once in a while. That's the problem. Maybe it'll look bad because it's bad and fundamentally un-American and not at all the province of police to be involved in literally any of this. And Donald Trump does seem to understand that there are some potential PR problems. Maybe if he becomes president, that will lead him to moderate his approach a little bit. But bear in mind, at the end of the day, it's probably not going to come down to him anyway. Stephen Miller is probably going to be heading that up. And do you think Stephen Miller has an issue with like a beautiful mom being deported or whatever? These aren't humans to him. He doesn't care. But of course, there was a mention of climate change there too, but only there so that Donald Trump could lie about it and imply that it's not actually a problem. So saying that concerns over sea level rise amount to 1/8 of an inch over 400 years, if you're going to be shocked to find out that's not true. That's not at all what it actually is. And when he says, who knows what's going to happen? The scientists, they're the ones with the best rate of the situation. You could talk to them perhaps and not just talk to right-wing ideologues, not just use your gut when it comes to climate change. And what's so super insidious about that is when he makes a joke about, it's gonna be more beachfront property. Like he's talking about Florida there. He's talking about his home, Mar-a-Lago, is going to inevitably be destroyed eventually. And not destroyed because suddenly the seas are gonna rise 10 meters and the entire thing is gonna be underwater. That's not like initially how it's going to work, but the intensification of the hurricane season that we're already seeing is going to get worse. You're going to have more frequent and terrible flooding, and it is going to ruin people's lives. Many of them conservative Republicans, many of them MAGA Floridians, who watch an interview like that and they're like, haha, yeah, really funny with the extra beachfront property. It's your house, it's gonna be underwater, you dumb donkey. Why aren't you afraid? Like, you're terrified like trans teachers. You're not afraid of the fact that you're gonna be hit worse and worse by the sort of storms that are already devastating you on a yearly basis. And then of course we get to the final claim. It only merits for him a couple of seconds. He's gonna destroy the Department of Education. Or
when it comes to the legal maze that you're still facing. And the judge could decide to say, hey, house arrest or even jail.
I'm as eager as the TD is to watch that, but we're gonna get to it in just one sec. But on the education system thing, like that's the sort of casual thing that if you're a radical ideologue who doesn't care about the consequences of your actions, you can just throw that out. We're gonna destroy the education system. We're gonna remove standards. We have an actual problem in America of our kids falling behind for a variety of reasons. And I do think that that's something that needs to be talked about. I think it should be a focus of like the platform of whoever becomes president. But by talking to teachers, talking to educators, talking to people who studied the problem, who studied our education system and contrasted it with others that are weathering the modern era a little bit better. The answer, and I'm not that expert, don't put me in charge of it, but I know that the answer is not just getting the federal government entirely out of it. Okay, when we were talking about, I think it was Louisiana and some of the changes they were making to their curriculum, and it was on the main show, I think last week that I talked with Anna about it. And I looked at the stats and they were in 48th place. Do we think that less oversight from the federal government is the thing that's finally gonna free their education system to become more internationally competitive? Does anybody actually think about that? Does anybody think that that's the way that it would go? But that's what he throws out there. No pushback whatsoever from Fox News there. That's not what they're there to do. They're there to reassure Trump's base, no, this guy's still got it. He can still win. It's not a problem to put this guy, into the White House potentially from his jail cell. You should be totally comfortable with that. And I want to end with this, by the way. It isn't just that the questions were softballs, that there was no follow-ups, there was no acknowledgement of any issues. They were doing something else. Watch this clip and see if you can tell what it is.
When it comes to the legal maze that you're still facing, and the judge could decide to say, hey, house arrest or even jail.
It
How
could.
do you face
It could.
what that could look
I'm okay with it. I saw one of my lawyers the other day on television saying, "Oh no, you don't want to do that to the president." I said, you don't beg for anything. You just the way it is. Think of it. They have all my books.
Did you catch that? That was a cut. He was saying a sentence, he ended it, and then they immediately cut. They didn't even cover it up very well. You're supposed to do a thing to sort of bridge the audio on each side of the cut so it seems more natural. They didn't do that. And they cut to a wide shot. Now, you can cut your interviews or whatever, but you're generally supposed to make it clear that that's what happened. And usually there's a good reason. Fox News has historically been perfectly comfortable with Donald Trump going on at length and just having his stream of consciousness diarrhea of the mouth. If they cut that there, it isn't necessarily because he said something crazy or something that would damage him, but I kind of have to assume that there's a chance of that, because why else are they cutting that in that very weird way? Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.